Welcome to this episode of Owning Her Health with your host, Dr. Lisa Holland, PT. Join Lisa as she starts the conversation on what it really takes to become a healthy, wealthy, and whole CEO of your life. Listen in to real talk by real lady leaders in all walks of life as they open up on personal health stories, wealth, career, and feminine abundant living. Learn how to grow by owning your body, expanding your mind, and aligning your soul with the purpose only you can pursue in this world. Happiness begins with owning her health right now.
Balcony, and I've tried to record this a little while. I had a lot of resistance recording it. This is the first episode of season 6. Can you believe it? Of Owning Her Health. Season 6 of Owning Her Health to start. It was supposed to start the beginning of September. We are now at the end of September. I had a hard summer activating, not in the normal way of like procrastination or not getting stuff done, just like in molasses and resistance and literally being just things not working out technically. Like I could say, oh, it's because we were Mercury retrograde or whatever. I don't think it was that at all. It was that there is a thing of divine timing. I've been called into divine timing so much this past year, particularly in March. Yeah, I'd like to say probably, no, I'm going to say the whole year. I think since I've been when I was on Exuma and working from there with the lovely Kitty Adder lady and her practice and her change making over there. And I came back in February and I was getting this sort of just difficulty. Let's say difficulty. And all I can say is the molasses. And the more I was speaking to my clients, the change makers, the ones that are birthing something, the alchemists, the ones that who are the entrepreneurial women who are moving into position, the ones that have been evolving over the past, I'd say, anywhere from 5 to 10 years. The one who have, when they think of themselves in 2013 and who they were and what their thoughts and belief systems were and what were their limitations and where they were going and what they were doing to get there and their strategy versus what actually had to happen to have them on a completely different path or on the same path in a completely different way, repositioned, coming at it from a different angle. I know for me, it's higher limits than ever before. Probably, I'm not going to say I'm limitless. I'd love to say I'm limitless because I've been working so much on boundaries that I think I've had to. This is part of my work, and this is what many, many, many visionary, supportive women who were forced into being a controller, who were forced into being a controller either by childhood trauma or just part of their curvy hustle, part of their path into formation, to get them out of their head. Maybe they were too analytical to be visionary. And we need to have visionary people right now. We're alchemizing things. We're not necessarily working on the external accolades and the external drivers that we were taught in that old world perspective. The revolutions do not look the way that they've been given. They are not an external war. They are inner war. They are a spiritual war. This is something I've been hearing out of the collective. And it's so consistently out of the collective that I've gathered since 2013, which was my breaking point, my breakthrough point in understanding that whatever it was, I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do. But I knew that it involved other change makers. It involved other people who had gone off like me, went and created their own utopias, were ahead of the game and that sort of stuff. I believe there were other healers. What I've come to learn, especially since the pandemic, is that anyone who is coming out of their own flipping of their own pain, moving that into their own personal healing, and then moving that into a social healing, is as much of a medicine woman as anyone who's been treating and caring for and coaching the physical body and the mental body and the spiritual body out. We now need the financial bodies. We now need the dharmic or contributory career worldly. We need the companies that support us. We need the spirituality and the science to meet where it should. And that's at the quantum level. We need quantum leaps. The people that know the quantum leaps were the people whose world I moved into back in the early 2000s. And as I came out of traditional healing, traditional rehab, and became holistic, and that a lot of that was for me. And if you were to speak to a lot of healers, a lot of people coming out of healthcare, especially those that came out of that first wave in the late 90s, early 2000s, that began forming their own entrepreneurial journeys as the only way at the time to be able to fulfill themselves and then become the leaders of the leaders, the guides of the guides, the teachers of the teachers. The only way that was going to work was if we literally created our own worlds. But then it became very, very clear moving into 2010 and till 2020, that decade, if we were to look back and you were to talk to a lot of other healthcare providers turned more integrative healers during that first period, that first decades of the 20th century and the late 1990s, that they would tell you probably the same thing they've been telling me. I mean, they wouldn't lie, but if you just randomly spoke to somebody I hadn't, who's gone through that journey, they would say, I realized that a lot of that work I did was my childhood trauma, my solution for it as an adult, my way to allow myself to get paid for doing and learning the things I needed. I realized I needed to heal, to be a better person, to self-realize myself. And then I outgrew that system that was breaking. Part of us leaving was the start of that system breaking, because the only people that were left were the martyrs, who were going to still be abused by the people who are corrupt and are in things like healthcare and in things like finance and academics and governance and all of these other institutions, that now the first wave of those medicine women and men are coming out of. The pandemic was the only way for them to see the light, to see the disloyalty that was right in front of them, to see the lie, to realize that that system does not have their back, even though they were building that system. And that's not to say there needs to be anarchy. That's why I said the revolution of now, because of the consciousness level of everyone rising, and because of those first leaders who bucked the academic system and made those independent schools, who bucked the governing systems and made, these kind of utopic social structures, which were more egalitarian, were more in a circular, systemic leadership, a variable leadership depending on the needs of the moment, the needs of the times, much like the human body and the earth and Gaia, and the universe, which are two different things, but the container that holds it in the earth and all the other planets and stars and things that have exploded from that supreme consciousness, that seemingly repetitive styling thing that does things in spirals and on certain cycles and rhythms, became us. That wisdom, that womb wisdom, because we all came out of a womb and we all came out of one womb here on earth. We can date it back to one woman, not one man. Many men and one woman that feed back to one woman. As amazing as that is, how did that happen, right? It's It's just too much coincidence at this time for the science and the spirituality to not meet. And so, whether it was biological warfare or strategized elitism or what, here's the thing, guys. If it was the elite that is the most corrupt, that put on the pandemic, that is proof positive that there is a God, in the way that the Bible says that God will take whatever the enemy puts and will flip it around for its benefit. That will take whatever pain and suffering has attempted to be inflicted and literally use that same thing to do 10 times more good. So that's what's coming out of it. And I know that might be hard to hear if you've been economically ill, been physically ill, been mentally ill, been emotionally ill, been relationally ill, and therefore seen the social illnesses, and therefore also had your dharma or your life's purpose altered in a way, and then that's made you feel ill. I get that. It's just part of transformation. Transformation means change. Change is painful. The suffering that must go on is more about holding on to the old systems and the old ways of doing things and working in a way of revolution that is competitive and adversarial than it is in working in what I'm saying we've been trying to birth, that we have been birthing, that we've been incubating and growing and nurturing and birthing, which is this new earth, this new way of living. I hope we survive through the birthing process. Not every mother makes it through the birth of her child. Not every child makes it through the birthing mother's best efforts. And the fact we have such a problem with that here on Earth right now, and the maternal health stats are so horrible. It's just 2020 to 2023 and ongoing right now. I think there's going to be my guides, my God, my angels. I don't know who or whatever, but there's this knowingness. It's always been about 2025. 2023 was a shift I was going to need to get to when my life fell apart, my towers came down abruptly to reposition myself and put me where I had been running. I was like Jonah and the whale since about 2013, 2012, probably. I could even think back to 2010 when I should have taken my training with Sri Dharma Mitra in Puerto Rico. I just, always an excuse. The enemy will go and make you very busy with good things rather than make you do bad things. That's what you have to understand. And I was very doing good things, but they weren't the right things. And I've heard this story over and over. And 2020 to 2023 so far has been truth telling, has been confirming to me my 2010 to 2020 confirmations and revelations. And it feels like I've always been sort of told, 2023 was going to be where I needed to get to then sort of see the world was where I was going to be in position to start bringing forth really what that last decade brought to me for what maybe the next decade is for the rest of the collective. Particularly tough the next couple of years. 2023 to 2025 is where it has just come upon me to just get so serious with the leadership development aspect. It's not that I never did this. It's that I only did it for people who needed to own their health, own their own conversations to get that health, own their careers so that they can have that fulfillment, to get those relationships, to get that leadership satisfied, to get that health. Like it was in a very much realm of the woman herself, of the person herself. And then it moved on over the past few years where I started developing Mind Body Brand Academy. And in literally as I birthed Mind Body Brand Academy, as it came through me from what I had been doing and talking one-on-one and launching over like 200 women privately the year or so before that course came out in January 2018. That was the same time my tower, my God, was redirecting me drastically to where I would need to be to give me the vision that would then bring me through to the next cycle. And I think there's so many people that are now going through that process of, that towering realization, being put in a place where they no longer have money as their God deciding what they do and giving them the logic to do the attachment that that they're going to die for that job to get that money. They're going to die for that partner to get that love. They're going to die for those children to get that attachment need and desire to be needed, fulfilled. And they're going to just need to they've either decided not to have it be transformational to them, to remain in their victimhood, and they are no longer on the arc with me. And those of the people that listen to me in any way that I have any sort of audience for, who use anything I say to inspire themselves, to educate themselves, to connect themselves, to progress themselves, and to take action, they're not even in my sphere. I used to want to have something for everyone. I have literally been told since November of last year, you no longer have the capacity to do that. And live healthy, live wealthy, live with the support and networks and people you need for this work, which is the work given by me. Not me, the big G. And I, again, oh man, being told the biggest work I've had to do for the past year has been getting comfortable. My new leap into leadership was not only investing. I invested the most I had ever invested in me before I even started this year. I had invested already about $20,000 into me and my growth and my coaching and like, coaching of me and mindset things and like things I needed to do before the year even started, before January 1st came. Q4 last year. There are things I did without a parachute, jumping without a parachute, that as much as I talked about it and could do that before, I never jumped more than like a few feet. You understand? This was like, no, you're jumping out of a plane without a parachute. Or maybe that's kind of where it's put me. That's probably where I am now. Before I was maybe jumping off of like, I don't know, maybe like 20 feet up where I can maybe get broken, but probably won't die through it. Now I'm jumping out of freaking airplanes without a parachute. With ultimate surrender, which was also a word that came to me through my book, Writing Goddess Wisdom 101. That's available on Amazon if you want to go get it. It's not the best rendition. I'm going to update it, but I needed to do that. I needed to do that in the last 90 days. I needed to prove to myself that I was going to close off 2020 through 2022, starting to publish the tremendous amount of works that I have written. I'm going to start sharing that. I've started it. I started a Substack this year, tested that platform out. I'm going to go back to it. The Curvy Hustler is being reborn. She was the vibe back in the day. If you have been with me, 2018 to 2019 or so, I did that kind of digital quarterly magazine-like thing. She's coming back. The vibe's coming back when I was with the Goddess Wisdom Mastermind, which then became the Goddess Wisdom Mastermind, but then became the Curvy Hustle Society. She's coming back as the Curvy Hustler with a private podcast and sponsorship opportunity, because that's another thing. We need to, as leaders of our feminine divine being respected, being valued, they get to decide. Everyone else is just like business, okay? The person who's buying things, the buyer gets to decide the value of something. We can't sit around with pickets, picket signs and marches and all this stuff, forcing everyone else to buy us the value we feel we are. It is a waste of time. They have the freedom, just like it's not our job to prove our value. Okay, not as a business, not as an entrepreneur, not as a woman, not as a human being, not as a child, not as an adult. Okay, not as a worker or anybody. It is not, that's not our job. The person gets to decide our value. That's just it. They get to decide our value. That's their opinion. You get to decide whether or not they are right or wrong. That's fine. You get to decide the price. You get to decide the price. I was just listening to an entrepreneur. I was listening to the guy who created Founder. What's his name? I can never remember people's names. It's a really bad thing that I have. I see them. I feel their energy. I connect with people's energy. I completely respect their essence. And it's like their outsideness. Like I can see them, but like I'm not really seeing them that way. It's like when I was a physical therapist and I would be like, I'd tell my patients that too. I would say, I'm right now looking at your ACL connecting into your tibia, your bottom bone of your leg. And I'm sort of like looking at that with what I understand it should be at like this 8 weeks into healing. And as I'm doing this modality or I'm doing this therapy or I'm doing this exercise, like that's how I'm seeing you, muscles, bones, and whatever. When somebody would come in and say, I'm sorry I didn't shave my legs, I was like, until you said that, I didn't even look at that because I was becoming an x-ray. That is how I see things. That is like somewhat of being able to be in other people. That's how I dance. That's how I learned dance as a dancer when I was younger. That's how I accelerated in that and always was with the older kids and the more advanced people physically, because I would be able to get into their energy field and like feel the steps the teacher was teaching. That's just who I am. It's a little bit scary. But that's why I don't necessarily worry about names, but I do understand names are important because that's the connection people make with the physicality. My name is Lisette. That's why I've gone on to that, even though my stage name is Dr. Lisa and I've been sort of gone through life as Lisa. My given name is Lisette. It is a regal name. It is a form of Elizabeth. That is a queen's name. And I did myself a disservice not using it. I did myself a disservice by whitewashing myself. My parents did, thinking they're protecting me as a brown girl in a very white town. A lot of Puerto Rican parents did that when they came to the mainland. And, so there's no more time to not share these wisdoms. There's no more times the things I'm saying through this, the things that's coming through this. You got to be fast. You got to connect the dots. You've got to realize how everything I'm saying about my path and getting here, and even the difficulty to getting this out, and the divine timing to get this out. It would have been a waste of time probably for me to put this out early in September because of where everyone's mindset was, where my mindset was. To start the season then, when it wasn't actually the next season, was counterintuitive to how I even work. I was just following again. I was like, oh, school's back. Everybody's in the fall mindset. I should start my new year, which always starts in the fall. If you haven't heard me before, that's part of the Curvy Hustle framework. I get women to actually start going on this sort of 360-degree view, 365-day cycles. Instead of worrying about 7-day cycles, which your body's not made for anyway, you're on 30-day cycles and seasonal cycles and seasons of life cycles. I live my life this way. My business always started in the fall of me like planning, programming this and this and that. And I'd launch things in the spring because that's how babies are made. Okay. And that was where I was. But the times in life has changed. And that's what God was telling me. That's what my work has to be received. That's why that's why my teacher Sri Dharma was always saying, be receptive. That's why he was my teacher. That's why when he told me to go to Chandra and work on the mother connection that I had to work and heal, she didn't necessarily use that same terminology in that way, because her work with me was owning up to my authority and owning up to my worthiness to be a teacher of teachers and guide of guides and spiritual teacher at that, outside the confines of religion, outside the confines of getting my PhD in theology and all of these other things, through lived experience of womanhood, through the Holy Trinity. I've been trying to teach that Holy Trinity of we don't have a Holy Trinity of the feminine, because we've neglected that whole entire energetic side. This isn't a social construct, okay? This isn't a feminine energy, the Holy Trinity of the feminine, the whole story behind the mist, apocalyptic type of pastoral, revelatory nature of all the women who were showing and demonstrating more Christ consciousness than a lot of the other men featured with them. all of this hasn't been in all my teachings. Whether you've been with me as the belly guru, whether you've been with me through functional medicine and more integrative physical therapy, whether you've been with me through integrative yoga therapy, whether you've been with me through life coaching and being a professional, ambitious, career loving woman that also wants to be family focused and think of her own energy and all of that, whether you were wherever you were with me, Mind Body Brand Academy, getting your crap together so that you could be the #1 oncology solution where you are in your vicinity, so you could take over the Caribbean conversation on, holistic, traditional, ancestral wisdoms, whether you're in the UK or in Africa, showing the integration literally of the feminine into the masculine through transgender transformation. Like, these have been all of my clients I've launched, going from their small solopreneur ideas into not just income, but into influence. And they went off and made beautiful impacts where they could keep organized and actually do it. But I realized there was a gap for a lot of them, that there was a leadership development gap, because there's a leadership development gap for all women, no matter how many research papers or letters after your name, no matter if you're in business and actually have a good idea and have a sustainable business or not. You are not given the same leadership development. You are not valued the same for your opinions and your style. That your relational intelligence is not recognized, and that has held you back financially, physically, mentally, relationally, spiritually, and ultimately dharmically, your impact into the world. And that's why you see me talking about leadership development more, because I realize, yay, great, everybody's got their little program in their business and their Instagram story, and they're still not stepping up as leaders. They're still not stepping up as leaders. They're putting all their energy into still how their peers think of them and to get money from selling more stuff to their peers. Like, we don't need another stitch of women's health research. If we could just get the women's health research that is valid research into execution with the powers that be, or create the new ecosystem that will allow for that, then we're going to be head and tails over wherever any extra research needs to be. We don't need another PhD in vaginal, spasticity. Like, we don't need that. We don't need any more information on penile enhancement. We don't need any more information on relational, intelligence for getting back out of divorce. We don't need any more trauma research. We really don't. We need to use what we have and actually start applying it. We need to get the people who did not come on the ark with us need to go. They need to go. which means you need to stop supporting their systems so that they either switch their value of you or they suffer the consequences. But what we need is that other ecosystem, that alternative. We need to stop believing the way we've been told that there needs to be this whole big war and revolution to get it done from the outside. And we need to start doing that within. Because if we do that within and harvest our own relational intelligence, harvest our own emotional intelligence, harvest our own, which are not the two same things, harvest our own mental processing, our own mental faculties, understand how everything works, how money works, what money is and is not. Start understanding what this temple is, and you understand your iPhone more than you understand this technology. And what I'm doing when you're listening to me and not watching me on the video is I'm touching my body. You understand your iPhone more than you understand your body. You put your iPhone on a charger more than you put your body. So where does this all bring us with season 6? Season 6 is going to be about a lot about the same thing in terms of the same people, in terms of these women that have flipped their pain into programs and processes and promotions of themselves and products and making a profit, making an enterprise. It's going to be about leadership the way it always is, relationship with ourselves, but it's also going to go into relationship with others a lot more. I'm going to start talking about the things that I work with my individual clients and teams, and they're organizing their teams, those targeted axiological profiles, which is the psychographics, which are so much more important than demographics. When I went into my first business, Belly Guru, I had to have that whole demographic thing for the business plan. How much money do people make? What's their median income? What's their median age? Whatever. It is so convoluted, right? There are 55-year-olds killing it on TikTok and 25-year-olds sitting there doing something else someplace. Like it's so on TikTok too. Like it's so mixed now. We keep talking about intersectionalism, right? Which is great, but we keep getting it confused with sameness, which is wrong and not great. And so therefore we keep expecting everybody who gets the same title to not have to worry about equity gaps, leadership gaps, bias gaps, as if it's an equal thing. I mean, it's such a mess. It's such a mess. We need all ages. We need all stages. We need a lot of our own leadership gaps to be overcome because, like I said before, many of us ended up in our careers as a response to our childhood trauma and an attempt to heal or at least appease those who were hurting us so we could then heal. Then it was actually because it was us coming out in form. And so therefore it's always going to be very stressful. Your natural style versus one of the other things that my psychographics pull out for people is how much work they really have to do to switch from their natural style to their work style. Like the woman I was talking to today, she does a lot of work to go to her work style, but she also feels most in control and dominant. And that is her personality, is to more lean towards dominance and control and this and that. And for whatever reason, that's the way she is, as opposed to being more of an influencer or more of a compliance and more of we're all of these things. But what comes out to live our life to the fullest and where we feel the most rooted and grounded, we want to know those psychographics about ourselves. It's of no use to know your strength finders when you don't understand your core drivers beneath you showing up in that strength. Because just because you have potential doesn't mean you're actually living in that potential. That's why I am choosing to work not in the what to do. I will give you that. I'm giving you that now. I've created some tools that are going to give that to you. That's your work to do. If you're going to change, if you're a change maker, if you're somebody that you see there's something more for you, and I'm not saying make a big enterprise, but I'm saying to be enterprising, okay? then that's your security. That's more security than ever getting a job, because that person who has employed you does not have you unless they're making themselves sick, which I'm working with those people. Those people that are hiring people to help the employees' finances, but then lets the employee not actually do the job that they were hired to do because they don't do the job well, but they don't want to fire them. Like, that's not being kind. That's being nice, but that's for you. Don't get that wrong. Those are business people that are always suffering, and they're going to end up being sick by the time they retire, and then they're not going to have all their money's going to have to go to their retirement, and they're not going to have any of the fun they thought they were going to have. I'm talking to the people that don't want that to be their version of the future. They do know that they have much more to offer right now, especially compared to the people that did not get on the ark with us. Those people who did not get on the ark with you, you need to let them go. I know some of them are in your family. Believe me, if you've been following me since 2017 or so, you saw me amputate. You saw me amputated. Okay? I'm not saying this is easy, but every day you're supposed to be picking up your cross, if you believe in that, or you're supposed to be doing your mitzvahs, and you're supposed to be owning your health to do that well, so that you don't come into power and misuse it, so that you don't get caught up in culture or even the church or the religious organization. Here's what my spiritual guide Dharma was so good at. There wasn't a religious context at all. It's all about spirituality. Well, one thing he would say is, you need to make sure you're grounded enough and you're doing the work on your body, your biochemistry, your mind. Like, that's what all the diet is and all the movement stuff is, and the mind body work and the breathing and all of that stuff. It's to get you so clear of a vessel that you do not bring in the light and then misguide that light based on an impurity or a dent, right? A cut that wasn't quite optimal to show its shine of that diamond. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference in the skill of those who cut the diamond, right? If you've been cut by people who aren't skilled, your light's not going to be filtered well. And one thing I loved about yoga is yoga was a way to set the pressures from the inside out to literally cause that remolding so that you could be recut into your brilliance. Okay? But the one thing he would always say to us is, make sure you're doing that work, because you need to know that when it's not about blind faith. It's not about blind faith. The reason that you're asked and called to do the work is because you need to be in position for the responsibilities being given, or the responsibilities will not be given. And if you go by your willpower and create those responsibilities for yourself before you're ready, you're going to misuse that power. And that's going to be a detriment. You're not going to be loving or helping anybody. And if you get lost in that and get so self-centered, then you're going to become part of the problem. And those people who are part of the problem right now, you've got to let them go. They need to live out whatever they're going to live out. If your belief is they're going to hell, you're going to have to let them go to hell. If your belief is they're going to kill themselves, you're going to have to let them kill themselves. I hear you. It is so hard, which is why we need each other and we need community, which is why I need you to be a sponsor of Owning Her Health. I need you to join the Curvy Hustler when I ask you to. I need you to donate when I ask you to. I need you to help me get my books and publications out when I ask you to. I want to be in position that I can then give back to you tenfold. But I'm not going to do this by myself. And I've been laying out the framework and the seeds because, as Dharma would say, I need to be in position that when one of you walked into my room, if I walk into one of your places, if I walk into the guru's chambers, and the guru hasn't been doing his or her work, and she is shining a little disturbingly, it seems like being challenged by their demons. Listen, the only perfect soul is the supreme consciousness, or something like Jesus, the Buddha, whatever you believe in. It's not your 3D guide, priest, pastor. They're not perfect. You're all on the same damn road this lifetime. You're working it out. There are some people who get into position and they fall. You need to be in a place where when you recognize the people you're looking up to, your parents, your authority figures in your life, past mentors, spiritual teachers, whoever, whatever, when they've fallen, you better realize it instead of falling with them. You don't jump into the water when you've been given the ark. You don't jump into the water to follow them. If they didn't get on the ark or they didn't make it for you and with you, and now all of a sudden they're telling you to jump off when you know God gave you or your spiritual teachers, your guidance, and like you have to do the work to know the difference. That's what we're doing in season 6. We're doing the work. We're not here for entertainment. We're here to connect you to resources. There's going to be a lot more options for downloads from certain episodes for you to go over to the show notes. There's going to be invitations. There's going to be some advertisements. Okay. I'm going to start monetizing this podcast. Not because I want to go on my yacht and take an Instagram picture and show you my good life. It's because I need this to start sustaining itself so I can get the right production people in to do the work so I can do the bigger work that I need to do. So that I can travel to all of you wonderful people that I set up into your leadership with you, and then go do the next level stuff where I literally come in and do it with you. I'm not going to let you fail. If you sign up with me, I'm not going to let you fail. That doesn't say you're not going to fail yourself, but I'm not going to let you fail. And I want to be able to give every opportunity. That means I'm going to have much more travel, which means I'm not going to be able to take on maybe as many people or manage things. And, like that's what happened. I couldn't teach yoga classes anymore, a regular yoga class. I could teach a yoga class to my private clients. I could put things together in a private program. But once I started being available to doing certain things and definitely over the pandemic, when I kind of let everything go and let myself live as that monk, what was inside me for a little while, probably from a past life experience that I wanted to kind of regain back. Like I couldn't set, I didn't know where I was going to be on Tuesday, Thursdays at 5 o'clock to teach that class. I couldn't commit to that. It's not about right or wrong. It's about you need to have a curvy hustle like that. You need to have something that you could literally move around with where you're being curved. That's security. It's not that I'm ignoring what's going on out there, but I don't really care. I don't really care, like in the terms of like, oh my God, what's going to happen to me and this vision. Like my vision's bigger than ever before. But if I would be listening to the turbulence in my lifetime, nothing's been this crazy on so many fronts with the amount of responsibility I have as an adult with 2 kids in their early 20s. And niece and nephews now, and like all these other things, divorced, 51. I'm in my 50s now. I'm 51. Like some other people would say, oh my God, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, what are you talking about? That first 45 years of my life was getting me to the point I always needed to be. I'm just such a damn stubborn soul. It took 45 years. Like there's no difference in what's going on here. If anything, things are working through me and for me more than ever in my mentality. Like I connect the dots so much better than I did as a kid. As a kid, I just turned angry. I'm not angry. I still get frustrated, but I'm not angry. And if you talk to me and if you've worked with me and if you know what's going on with me more, you'd be like, why aren't you angry more? I get those moments because I'm doing the work, doing it at a cellular level. No women have been given this. Everything you've been seeing about, so throwing yourself in a tank, getting yourself up at 5 o'clock in the morning, doing your micros, doing your macros, it's all been about being a guy more. Okay? It's all been about how could we utilize what the warriors, what the primal man, most of our science is based on the male body, the male physiology. Adapted. We don't even have science except for experimentation, like you were a science experiment, a non-human, until about the 1990s. And still places on this earth and still places here in America, I know, are still doing it because we have such horrible maternal health rates and we have such issues. So don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. Know what you're fighting for. Know what you're trying to hold on to. Stop just thinking about what you're supposed to be thinking about and actually think. And that's what Owning Her Health this season 6 is going to be about. So again, I thank you so much for being here. These are some of the ideas and things we're going to do through season 6. I'm so excited to have you here at Owning Her Health. We're going to have another episode coming out this week with a wonderful woman, Janet Bruns, who is writing a beautiful book about becoming a mother and what she's learned through her culture, through her own pains, through her own walk through womanhood, maidenhood, motherhood. And she's younger than me, so she hasn't had to go through the maidenhood yet. But we had a really nice discussion, and I think you're going to really enjoy that, especially if you're somebody who struggled with that process of, like, you know, perfection, wanting to do so right, wanting to heal a lot of the wounds of your own childhood through being a different type of mother. No disrespect to your mother, but you should have learned some things, right? She should be learning through you. You give your mother the gift of being a grandmother, learning through you to, you know, heal her own motherhood experience. So that's what we're doing. I invite you to get the show notes. You could always send something to support at drlisahollandpt.com with any recommendations. If you'd like to pitch yourself, if you think you are a woman, a curvy hustler, or somebody owning her health and in the process turning her pain into passions and programs and processes and profits, I'd love to speak to you and see if we do have a show. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time on Own Her Health.
Thank you for listening into this episode of Owning Her Health with Dr. Lisa Holland, PT. To learn more about her personal and professional development service, visit her online at drlisahollandpt.com.